It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call us to order. And welcome, everyone. This is a meeting of the Ferndale Public Schools Board of Education held on October 17, 2016. Our meeting is being recorded for broadcast on our YouTube channel. All meetings in the Ferndale schools are held in public in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Printed documents discussed in tonight's meeting are available to the public on request, with the exception of any information that is protected by student or employee privacy rights. Board meeting information is posted on our website at www.ferndaleschools.org. If you do not have internet access, give us a call at 248-586-8652 by the Thursday of the week prior, and we will do everything we can to get you the information. And if we could go forward with a roll call, please.
Butters?
Here.
Hart?
Here.
Mueller?
Here.
O'Donnell?
Here.
Toomey?
Here.
President Rivas?
Here. We can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I believe everyone should have their agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda that's before us still?
Maybe flip 9 and 10.
Yep, I was going to do that. Without it, if there's no objection, to move the Eagles Points of Pride to number 9 and move the closed session to number 10. Okay. Any other changes? Seeing none, without objection, by unanimous consent, the agenda is approved with that one modification. And now we can move into our Ferndale student representatives. First up, we have Isabel Kolanowski from Ferndale High School. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Isabel?
Hi, I'm Isabel Kolanowski, a senior at Ferndale High School. Since last month, school has been flying by. We had our Homecoming Spirit Week. The theme was Roaring 20s. Students dressed in themes all week to show school spirit. The week ended with a pep rally and a powder puff football game. Students participated in the Ferndale Schools Parade by carrying banners or as part of Homecoming Court. The homecoming dance was fun and was well attended on Saturday, October 8th. The FHS football team won the homecoming game against Hazel Park. After last week's game, the football team made playoffs, and their record is 6-2. This is their first playoff game since 2008. Their last regular season game is on Friday, October 21st at FHS at 7 o'clock. Boys and girls cross country will run their league meet on Thursday, October 20th at Catalpa at 4:30 p.m. Girls volleyball has a meet tomorrow at Oak Park. Boys soccer won their first district game tonight. Their next game is Wednesday. The fall play is The Hobbit, and practices are well underway. Performances are November 12th, 11th, and 13th. Miss Morrison took her AP Lit students to Stratford to see Macbeth. The marching band has placed first for their last two competitions. FHS has parent-teacher conferences from 5:30 to 8 Wednesday and Thursday in teachers' classrooms. Robotics starts November 9th. NHS inductions are Tuesday, October 25th. Hijinks and Hilarity concert is on Thursday, October 27th. The USA Blood Drive is on November 1st. Right now, Peer to Peer is having their Halloween party. The class of 2017 will have their senior meeting on November 9th for caps and gowns and class photos to be taken. This Saturday, the Police Youth Conference is meeting from 9 to 2. They're going to discuss the many incidents between the police and youth. That is being led by Mr. Ivory and Pal. Free tutoring every Monday from 3 to 5 in the Counseling Center. Our college counselor, Daniel Lewis, has set up many college visits to keep the students informed through email and Instagram page. The Gay Straight Alliance Club meets on Fridays, the Anime Club meets on Thursdays, and the FHS yearbooks are for sale. We have a half day on Friday, November 21st, and no school on November 8th due to Election Day.
A lot going on.
Yes, thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions?
Do you have any questions? No? Thanks, that was very informative.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next from University High School, we have Shainita McAlpin for our first time getting to meet her. Welcome.
Well,
Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
Shanita McKelpain, and I'm a senior at University High School, and I've been there since the 9th grade. Recently, the seniors have been traveling to Wayne State University every day to take our 3rd, 4th, and 5th hour classes there. It's really beneficial because you really get to get the college feel of what it'll feel like to walk up 1,000 steps every day. As many of you know, we've recently changed buildings from Paxton Street to the new building on Bermuda, and it's a bigger building, so of course it's a lot more space, and we can hold many more of our events there. On college night on September 29th, we had 30 plus schools. We had HBCUs, private schools. It was community colleges, just a lot of options to choose from. On October 4th, our AP class went to Stratford, and we saw As You Like It. It was really fun. On October 7th, the Wayne State University C2 Pipeline Program, they took about 55 students to Michigan State to tour the campus and have lunch and meet new people. On October 14th, Friday, we attended the Oakland School Student Diversity Forum. And I didn't attend, but I believe that we just talked about issues about diversity within Oakland schools and different ideas to change it. On October 18th, which is tomorrow, it's a field trip to Garden Fresh, and excuse me, it's a restaurant, and they make their own like salsa and chips and stuff, and they're going to be talking about the STEM aspects of the business. On October 25th, we have our NHS induction at our school, and then on October 28th is our homecoming dance, which is next Friday.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot going
Great
on.
job. A lot going on there too. And as I mentioned last month, Shanita and Isabel, you guys are more than welcome to stay if you want and participate in our discussion, but I know you have a lot going on, so you do not have to stay if you don't want to. So feel free to stay as long as you want or take off right now. It's
Feel
perfectly
free.
fine.
It was just about to get good.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
When did that? Have I been missing a part?
You have to stay.
The whole thing's excellent. We talk about policy, what's happening in the district. It's
Okay,
good
moving
times.
into public comment, which is item 3 on our agenda tonight. This is the time for public participation in the meeting. The Board of Education intends for the public to have many opportunities to address the board and administration of their school district. These include email, phone calls, face-to-face meetings, community gatherings, public hearings, and other public meetings. We welcome individual and group input into the important issues that confront our schools. As noted at the top of the agenda, this is a meeting of the school board open to the public. We want to provide fair and impartial guidelines for participation as required by the Open Meetings Act, and to encourage transparency and equal treatment for everyone in attendance. We also recognize that an effective meeting facilitates better decisions and promotes openness by allowing more people to stay for the full length of the meeting. To meet these goals, I ask you to note the following. We ask that you identify yourself and list the contact information on your comment sheet to help the administrators follow up with your comment. If you don't wish to do so in writing, please identify yourself at the podium. And if you do need a response, please provide contact information so we can follow up after the meeting. I'll call on people who've completed a comment sheet first. Haven't received any yet, so what we'll do is allow each person to line up at the podium. Each person will have one opportunity to address the board for up to 3 minutes. Comments or questions should be directed to the board president, that's me, the secretary or vice president. I'm going to ask Ms. Camiller tonight to raise her hand when your time is within a few minutes of expiring. Seconds. Yes.
First, I keep raising my hand right away from the beginning.
Just a few seconds. This period of public comment is for both agenda and non-agenda items. Public comments will end at the close of this part of the agenda. In the event that the number of people wishing to comment requires longer than 30 minutes, public comment will be temporarily postponed after 30 minutes, and the time will be added to the end of the agenda. Complaints about staff should be made outside of board meetings and should follow the applicable board policy. Please contact the superintendent's office if you have any questions regarding this item. The board cannot respond to complaints about employees in public. This is meant to promote fairness to the staff person and to the complainant. And finally, the Ferndale Public Schools community acts with great civility to one another. Please help us maintain that tradition during the public comment. So I did not receive any comment cards, so I'd ask that anyone that wants to address us can approach the podium. Mr. Telesford?
Good evening. My name is Maurice Telesford. I'm the president for the Ferndale Education Association, which is the teachers union. A few updates from the union. We really had a good time at the homecoming tailgate and parade. You may have seen some of the teachers in their building shirts or in our red union shirts. We bought about 240 donuts from Apple Fritter on Ferndale and 9 Mile and gave those out for free. We also probably gave out over 300 cups of cider, so hopefully the kids were wired on sugar and excited for the game. And we got those funds through a grant through the Michigan Education Association, so we were happy to get that. In terms of new members, we've signed up 21 out of 25 new teachers to the union, so we hope to get 100% before the month's over. Health insurance is a big issue of concern for people across the state, but teachers especially. Last year, to give you an example, someone on a family plan, our choices plan, paid about $220 per paycheck. This year, because of rates that went up across the state, they're paying about $350 per paycheck. So that's roughly like $3,000 more per year. So we're working with Tom Shelton and Teresa Halpin to try to identify plans through MESA that offer good coverage, but with maybe more flexibility in terms of the rates. So we'll be working on that in the next couple of days. The other big items are negotiations. So the board's preparing for negotiations, as is the union. Members are excited. We're kind of organizing committees to make sure everyone's involved and we have everyone's input. So we're looking forward to that. And the last thing is just a reminder to the world, or at least America, to vote and vote with information. So if you don't know about candidates, there are many resources, the Women League of Voters that puts out information about candidates. So try to educate yourself and make sure you go to the polls on the 8th. That's it.
Great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Alexander, and I know several of you, but I've been a Ferndale parent for the past 7 years. I have a 7th grader at the middle school, and I also have a 3rd grader at Ferndale Upper Elementary. And I've loved Ferndale schools up and, I've loved it. I've loved Kennedy. It's been amazing. I've loved how much you can get in the classroom. And, but, I've been volunteering. I'm usually in the school 2 to 4 times a week. I've also, last year I started substitute teaching. And, 6 weeks into the school year, and I've turned into a proud Ferndale parent to a concerned Ferndale parent. And, I see things in the classroom, and I understand you have to educate. This is a public facility. You have to educate, everybody that you're given, but you take 2 schools that have 2 completely different cultures, and you combine them, and it is being in the classroom, you see a lot of stuff going on. You see a lot of behavioral issues. Most classrooms have 3 to 8 kids with behavioral issues. If I was these teachers, now granted, I'm a sub, so I know they're going to act out more for me. But it's very concerning because they're still going through the rigors of how to line up, how to do this, how to do that. It takes away from teaching. I've seen a lot of disrespect. And this is just where these kids are at. We can't change necessarily what we're given, but I feel we've got to do something to address these things because it's taking away from some of these other kids that really want to learn in the classroom. I've seen kids, as I'm trying to get them to quiet down and it's taking, 10 minutes, kids frustrated and just stop. Like they're trying to tell their fellow peers to stop and they're just continuing to act out. I've seen a couple kids just bury their heads into their desks because they're frustrated at the classroom behavior that's going on. for the first time, my daughter got bullied this year. And, the school's done a great job. Her teacher did a great job. The principal got involved. I feel great about how they handled that, but it makes me nervous for the future. I've 30 kids stuffed into a classroom creates more problems, especially in the middle school. These kids have a hard time with respect, and then they're pushing each other because they can barely make it down the aisles. So, I'm afraid that we're going to start losing great teachers. I'm afraid, for me, I've started to think about schools of choice. And, and that's brokenhearted to me because I've loved this school and I've loved this school district and I love this community. So, oh, one last thing is, I don't know if you guys get a chance to go in the classroom, but it's encouraging. I would encourage you to go see the classroom, see what's going on, and ask yourself, would I want my child to be in this class, and can my child thrive in this classroom? So, thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight and sharing your concerns. I do appreciate it. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Kerry Comerford. I live over on East Oak Ridge. Sorry for coming in late, and hopefully I didn't disturb the proceeding here, but I'd like to talk about the University High School on our street. There is a number of neighbors, in fact the entire block, as far as I know, are upset with the disruption of our neighborhood. This is not to say that we're upset with the school. We want kids to get educated, and the higher they go in school, I think the better off they are. But the school was built back in 1994, and it was built as a middle school, and we were promised that because the school, the one that it replaced was on the opposite corner of the block. It was on the southeast corner. They put the new school on the northwest corner. And I live right across from that, so I got a great view of the two-story brick wall with gymnasium lights that shine into my front of my house. Now they turn them on as soon as they start the rental process of the gym. And they go till, from communication from the superintendent, till 10 o'clock. Well, I can tell you they stay on later than that. Until I'd had a discussion with him at a open house about the school, they were on all weekend long, for days on end, all night. They didn't turn them off at all. I appreciate the action you took, Mr. Pruitt, by being on top of it. I did have to call you a couple times and leave messages, and you did follow up and did take care of that issue. However, now it's dark at night, very early, and the lights are on till after 10 o'clock. I think that something needs to be done with blacking them out permanently, because I know there's activity after school, and I think they need to be totally blacked out. On the end of the school, on the north end of the school, are lights outside that light the vacant lot there. And they can also install shielding on those lights, because it brightens up the whole house next door. It even bleeds across to the front of my house. Yes?
My wave, your 3 minutes is almost up.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. I didn't hear that part. But the main problem is it was built as an elementary school, and it is now a high school. And it's way too much traffic, too much infiltration into our peaceful neighborhood. And it's not designed for that. It's not designed to be a school with that amount of traffic flowing in and across their neighborhood, blocking us from getting out of our driveway, blocking us from getting off of our street. And we've had a number of very impolite and non-caring drivers coming up and down the street. They speed off, and there's just a whole litany of stuff that we are very upset about. And we sent a message, we sent an email to a couple of our neighbors, and I don't know if all of you have seen it, you probably have, but I feel like I just got blown off, and I expect something else to be done.
Well, I thank you for coming here tonight and talking to us. I know this is a significant time of transition, and we're trying to work through a lot. So I do appreciate you coming tonight and sharing those concerns with us. And it is something that we have been looking at, we're going to continue to look at, so that we want to make sure that the schools and the students and the parents and the neighbors and the community is all satisfied with what we're doing. So thank you for
Don't
coming.
see how you're gonna do it.
We're trying. Anybody else? Okay.
My name is Nancy Jackson. I also live on East Oak Ridge. I'm going to continue this conversation. My neighbors and I have counted as many as 110 cars each morning and evening. We don't think our street is built for this. We don't think any of us are going to be able to have emergency care if that is needed, because we have a three-way gridlock. Even though there's a do not enter sign at the east end of our street, as soon as police cars leave, they drive through. We see it last Friday. Took me 11 minutes to get from Woodward to my house, which is about 11 houses down. And we were not all going the same way. And the people who had driven through that stop sign that is facing east that says do not enter, they're traveling west. They're not our residents. They got kids in the car. So we either need a security force or the police to be there. It doesn't matter in our community now when you went to bed, how late you work, what your hours are. You cannot sleep past 7:10 or 6:50, because that's when the parents are there, the music's going, the doors are slamming, the moms are saying you better go in the building here, or they're trailing their kids, typical teenage stuff. But I don't want to hear it. I didn't pick my house in Ferndale out of the communities I passed leaving Bloomfield to live across the street from an unmanaged traffic, messy space. The letter we sent to the superintendent basically dismissed every comment we made. 15, 20 pop bottles on the playground. We've never seen that before. For the first time I saw a condom package. That goes with teenagers too, but either monitor the kids or clean it up. I don't care which. But I think our tax dollars are not being used wisely right now. Thank you. And that's the least kind things I can say, because we're really upset. We feel like our community's been ruined. Ruined.
Well, again,
We all are a very bonding community, so we talk to each other.
I understand. I have a tight-knit community too. So I do thank you for coming out. I thank you for the letter, and again, it's something that we're going to continue to work on. So thank you for coming and talking to us.
My name is Helena Casati. I'm a resident from East Oak Ridge Street. I live on the back side of the school against the gymnasium. The lights that Carrie was referring to shine directly into my house and into my bedroom. Oftentimes in the morning, the gymnasium has very loud music being played. My household, there's 5 of us. We work very, very late. Sometimes we get off between 2 and 3 a.m., which means our entire schedule is shifted. So we sleep our mornings when the school traffic does begin and the parents are blaring their music in the cars. The students are loud outside of our front window. All of these things are affecting us. For what a lot of people, it might be morning time, even if they are getting up. For us, it's technically the middle of the night for us. There are a lot of students being dropped off and picked up right in front of my house, right in front of my doorstep. That's something, in my opinion, that needs to be contained to the school property. It does not need to be going on anywhere outside of school property, because that is very, very disruptive to the nature of the neighborhood. I've lived there for a little over a year. My fiance, who unfortunately was not able to make it, he's been there for 3 years. When the school was an elementary school, it was much quieter. There was a little school traffic, but I think the big thing was really a lot of the students were being brought in via school bus, and now there's a lot of parent drop off. So in the afternoon in particular, parents are ready. They're waiting by 1:30 p.m. with their cars running. And so the neighborhood that also was once very quiet and peaceful is also, the air quality is being affected by all the running vehicles. I do a lot of walking in the neighborhood with my dog. Unfortunately, it's both sides of the street are being affected. There's lots of running cars constantly going. So. Anyway, thank you for my time.
Right. Thank you for coming. And I can see that you guys are all working together, so I do understand what you're saying, and I appreciate you all for coming out tonight. Is anyone else? Yep.
I'm here with my neighbors. Melissa Smith, 347 East Oak Ridge. I too do not like the traffic. I think there has to be a better way to do this. I don't know. Well, to start off with, we got letters in the mail. Well, supposedly they're more of a flyer, not a letter with a stamp on it. I would hope the city or the school board would have gave us a letter with a stamp that say that you were going to have a meeting to address this problem before it became a problem. So I never received any letter in the mail to say that this was going to be a university and then how the traffic flow was going to be. I wish I would have been more informed about that. Also, what's going to happen in the wintertime with all this traffic and the cars sitting there and with the streets being plowed, it's just going to be a giant mess. How come no one took the elementary play school equipment out? Now that it's a high school, why couldn't they take all that equipment out and make that into a parking lot? Or some kind of how they have in front of here, why couldn't they do something like that in front of the school there now? I don't like all the traffic, the noise, the lights, that's what a waste of money. They keep them on all night. There has to be something done about that, but I'm here with my neighbors just to try to figure a better way for this to make it more easier for us to get in and out of our driveways. It's going to be bad in the wintertime. I'm hoping this will be resolved before then. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming tonight. Is there anyone else here? Okay.
Okay. Hello. My name's Kiana. My niece is a student at Kennedy. She's 10. Her parents are going through an ugly divorce, and I don't live really near either of them, so I don't know what's going on in either one of their houses. I have no idea. The reason I'm here is because something happened. I don't know what happened, but it must have been serious because my niece, without anyone telling her, I don't know what happened, but she took the time to write a letter kind of asking for some help from, I guess, her principal. So I didn't find out about this until Friday. Today's Monday. And so my first call was, well, I don't really know what to do. I don't want to get in the middle of their divorce, so I guess I'll call some authority. So I called CPS to try to investigate whatever frightened this girl into writing a letter. I don't know. So my second question was, well, where's the letter? And it was like, well, it was given to her, somebody at the school. So I'm like, okay, well, what did the school do? And they're like, nothing. And I'm like, okay. So I go to the school to ask, and it was basically like, well, we just assume that, it's just, a rough divorce, and she was just sort of expressing her feelings, so we passed it to a social worker, but that social worker hasn't been here for some days, I guess, and the letter's just on the desk, and I'm like, so no one spoke to the 10-year-old to ask, why did she write this, or is everything okay, or is anything imminent, And in a way, I'm not blaming anybody because, like I said, I'm not there. I don't know. I just know the divorce is ugly. And so I'm only here basically just asking that the school be an independent advocate for children. Like if they, ask for something or they feel unsafe or whatever, because I personally don't care who's making her unsafe, whether it's my brother or her mother, I don't care. I just don't want anything to happen to her, So, but because I didn't get any letter, I guess she felt, at least from what I understand, when I asked her, when I finally saw her and I asked her, and she's like, I was just scared and I thought my teacher could help me or whoever. She didn't say who.
Okay.
So I just want, not just for her, but for any child, for any reason, if they independently come to the school about something, I just don't want it to sit on a desk for days and nothing to happen. I want somebody to say, because personally, I care about every child. I know that sounds cliche, but I'm like, I don't want anyone to, because I'm an adult, she's 10, she doesn't know how things work, I do. Sometimes things get pushed aside, people are busy, things happen, I get that. But she actually thought someone was going to help. And I just don't want her dreams to be crushed, and I don't want any child's dreams to be crushed. So I'm going to take your suggestion. I didn't know to contact email and all that and follow through more. But that's my request, just in general for every child. There needs to be a process where if they come forward with something, forget who and who, someone advocates for that child and looks into what's going on. And it doesn't just go unaddressed. That's it.
I appreciate you coming out tonight. I know this is a really difficult situation. I actually am a divorce attorney, so I know that divorce is really tough, and it's not tougher on anyone but the kids, so I understand that. And I can also assure you that the school, our number one priority is making sure kids are safe, and that we have protocols and procedures that we have to follow, and I can't really get into those
Of
tonight.
course. I wouldn't
But
want
I can
to
assure you
for
that
anyone's privacy or whatever.
right, but I can assure you that we've done. I know the schools have done a tremendous amount to try and make sure that all kids are safe. And I don't want you to think that any child is being left behind on that matter. So, but if you want to follow up with us by email or phone call, I'd encourage you to do that. But
Well, is that on here somewhere, just so I know?
it's also on our website. If you go to ferndaleschools.org, you can find the school board, you can find Mr. Pruitt, you can find the principal, you can find all of us. So
Okay,
you can
perfect.
follow up with us that way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. We have a lot of people here. I want to make sure everyone got an opportunity that came to talk. And I can't see everyone's faces, so if you're making eye contact with me and I'm not seeing you, please come on up to the podium. Okay, if that is everyone, last call, then I'm going to close public comment and move us into the consent agenda, which is item number 4. And on the consent agenda, we have, and again, you all are willing and able to stay, please do so, but if you don't want to, I will not feel offended if you decide that you want to leave. So, and item number 4 is our consent agenda. We have item 4.1, the request to approve minutes of the regular meeting, September 19th, 2016. 4.2, the request to approve bills and accounts. 4.3, request to approve resignations and new hires. 4.4, request to approve the Head Start Director's reports. Does anyone wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for later questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Moved by Ms. Hart, seconded by Ms. Toomey. And roll call, please.
Letters,
Yes.
Stephen Kraus,
Yes.
Hart, yes, Mueller,
Yes.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
President Mataj.
Yes. Thank you. With 7 yes votes, the motion passes and the consent agenda is approved. Moving to item number 5, action agenda items. The first item up is 5.1, the first read of policy 2340 regarding field trips.
So since having taken this to governance moving it forward, we've received some additional legal opinion on what the board needs to do. So I guess the first piece that I want to recommend is that we have a discussion on this item, but not move forward on a first read, as I believe that governance will need to do some further revision based upon legal opinion. But the thought process is that the board hasn't in the past approved overseas or overnight trips. Governance had talked specifically regarding the overseas trips. It does put us into a little bit of a legal issue, and our lawyers had recommended that that we not only look at an approval for overseas, but an approval for overnight trips, as that tends to be more common in school districts, but it's also a legal issue and a liability issue. Some of the conversation was, does the board want to get involved in approving 5-6 trips, every meeting? As we have many trips that, like band camp, orchestra camp, that are regular parts of what the district has done. So, there would be room, of what would go on consent, what would go on, action items. But I believe that we need to start looking towards this area in terms of official board approval of overnight and overseas trips. So I guess I did not want to move forward to first reading, but just did want to move forward to discussion on the item.
I just want to piggyback on that a little bit. As a teacher on that committee, I was definitely pushing for this because I know that there was one point at which I was nervous about a trip that I had taken students on because it had not had that formal board approval. And so if you are going to be certain as a teacher that you and your students with you are covered by all the insurance and assurities of the district, it's something that it's for the safety of everybody. So I think it's going to be our goal going forward to find the way to make this as least restrictive as possible, but to make sure that everybody who deserves to be protected is.
Yeah, since I was one of the ones that raised questions about this, it seems to me that actually the insurance wouldn't cover virtually anything that could plausibly happen on one of these trips. It certainly wouldn't cover the school district, it would cover the tour company, but even that would leave pretty large gaps. Mm-hmm. But I understand, Karen, what you're saying about the teacher knowing that it's essentially an approved activity. So I think it would be of interest to the board when this comes back, just to have a little bit more information from our liability insurance company about what exactly is and isn't covered. I mean, looking at the liability policy that is attached to the next agenda item, for example, I would imagine that one of the things that people would have concerns about, that somebody would want to, an interested party would want to make sure that we're covered for, would be, things like some act of violence at a heavily touristed spot, whether it's in, New York or Florida or in London. And every policy that I've ever read excludes any coverage for any act of war or anything that could be considered war, any kind of explosion, any kind of anything. They all make sure that they, don't cover that.
So one thing we talked about is, I know where I work, for example, those places where the gaps do exist, I as a teacher am required to make sure that I arrange for those sorts of insurance and such through whatever travel company, things like that. So I know that Tom and I were having some conversations specifically around insurance.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what that is, because usually coverage for terrorism, for instance, is expensive. Covering those exclusions is pretty expensive.
So it comes down to what we as a board want to have as our coverage for our kids, and then mandating it, knowing that it passes expenses on to children and families. So.
Yeah, and the other thing is, every time I've signed a permission slip, I waive all rights that I have. Anyway.
You say that happily.
No, it just goes with the territory. It's like choosing to accept terms and conditions on software. You can not do the thing, or you can accept the terms and conditions and say you're not covered for anything and they can do whatever they want. And it's my understanding that that's essentially been the way that's handled, and even some of the wording that we received, some of the information that we received, the general advice from the attorney on what other districts have done seemed to imply that the board would pass a resolution and say, we're approving this trip, but we're not accepting any liability, which is fine because the parents have already done the same thing when they signed a permission slip. And the other point that I think I wanted to make is, to me, I don't see any distinction between, as Mr. Pruitt said, between an overnight trip to Geneva or an overnight trip to New York or Orlando. The odds of anything happening are infinitesimally small, which is why I'm sending, I send my kids on these trips because the educational value far outweighs some minute risk that anything is going to happen. And I guess I see this more in a general way as an administrative item, if even that, than a board item. Because I don't, in the end, based on everything that I read and the insurance coverage and what the attorneys are saying, the board actually can't do anything except say, we approve the trip, but you're on your own, which is the same as not approving the trip, to me. So, if the school has approved it, like the STEM trip, I know the teachers have been putting this together for about a year and a half. The STEM trip to Europe, the STEM trip to the East Coast this past year, and a couple of years ago to California, then to me as a parent, that's essentially the most important thing. And as a board member, I had always been operating under the assumption that this was purely an operational issue. I haven't seen a lot to say that that's not the case.
So just so I'm clear on the information that I'm going to work on getting, information regarding insurance liability, and I have down getting further clarification regarding why the board would approve this as opposed to not just being an administrative function. Mm-hmm. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And I think the other part of the insurance is just seeing what coverage would be available. This might be a question for the insurance company. What coverage and how much would it cost to cover, say, 10 students going to Europe against the exclusions that the travel company's insurance would have?
Okay. Any other information that board members would like me to gather to take back to governance?
We talked a little bit previously about really how many trips we're talking about. And I really think if we sit down and really think about it, I think there's a lot more out there than first come to mind. Mm-hmm. UHS is a whole separate list of things that they do, their DECA team, and there's also robotics. And I guess another question that came to my mind is, will this, and I read through the proposed language quickly, so I'm not sure, maybe it's in here, but what about trips taken by the extracurricular organizations? We're specifically using the term field trip. Mm-hmm. But there's all kinds of extracurriculars that I'm wondering if that falls into this category too. So when our athletic teams travel, when our musicians travel, I'm wondering, well, this is more of a field trip, but she mentioned the Stratford trip. Both of the students mentioned the Stratford trip. Mm-hmm. That's an international trip. So I don't know, I feel like, and so that then, once we started talking about more than just the overseas trip,
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that logistics-wise, the process of the board approving all of those trips, I'm worried that it would be a lot.
It could
And-
get very cumbersome.
Yes, and also, I don't want it to be a burden on the trip planners, and I know we've talked about that, and we don't think it would be, but I mean, that's still in the back of my mind. And I also am wondering about the timing regarding if we go ahead with this policy, there's trips being planned all the time. And so I'm wondering if we need to discuss having like an effective date to give proper notice to people that have, there's trips for spring break that are already being planned. And so I feel like
A grandfather clause.
we should maybe figure out a way to say effective with next school year, or I don't know what would be appropriate, but.
Let me do more research.
Those sound like two really good questions for
Mm-hmm.
our legal team. One is the effective date, grandfathering in, and two is there any legal distinction between in-country trips and out-of-country trips? for
And
overnight
also
purposes?
school, class-sponsored and
Extracurricular.
extracurricular.
Right, and where does NHS, for instance, fall?
Right. And also, there is some language in the proposed policy about who pays for these trips. And we didn't really get into any of that discussion in terms of, the district may assume the costs of field trips. Students may be charged fees, however, for other district-sponsored trips, which are not part of a course of study. I mean, there's a lot of language there
But
that,
that's actually all part of our current policy. The only, let me see here.
so that just the yellow part
Just
is
the
the new.
yellow part is the
Okay.
addition to the policy.
But it still threw up a red flag for me a little bit in terms of, how much, what does that all really mean?
Well, and I think our request in governance was simply to ask what it was that our insurance required and to just do whatever policy would empower our superintendent to do that and meet that requirement. That was sort of all we were asking for.
And any other clarifications that the board would like me to get before taking it back to governance to review?
What you should get out of this is we trust our teachers who are making these decisions and have been making these decisions.
Well, and that, yeah,
We'll do what we need to do.
right, I
We
think.
just want to make sure we really do need to.
And that was a lot of it too, in terms of, this is not an attempt by the board or by the superintendent to impose more restrictions on the planning of these trips. The ultimate mission is to ensure the safety of our kids on these trips.
And it was a
And-
process of going through the policies and seeing what, since we know that there's been an ongoing issue of making sure our policies have been keeping up to date, that was this one admission that we looked at as a possibility. But I think these are all great questions that we need to have answered before anything would move forward.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Parliamentary speaking, do we need to have a motion to refer it back to governance, or can we just move on to item 3.2?
No,
There's no
no
action
motion is
required.
needed because it was never moved.
Never moved, that's okay. Then moving on to 5.2, which is resolution in support of CASA STEM field trip to Europe.
So this kind of falls under the same umbrella. As we were looking at the possibility of first read of that policy, I contacted CASA as I heard this trip was coming, knowing this was an overseas trip going, if the board was going to be in the middle of deliberating about a policy, I wanted to make sure the board knew this trip was out there. And that if we needed to do something to make sure that we were covered on that trip, I wanted to bring it forward. What I'm hearing, and I just want clarity on this from the board, is that the board is aware of the field trip now. Board knows that there are students that are signing up for this. If the board were to pass a policy a couple months down the road that would require approval, we'd have to look at if this would be grandfathered in. If for some odd reason the board did not approve this 2 to 3 months down the road, then we'd have students that would put money down that couldn't go on the trip. That's a lot of
Two
big
whose
ifs.
parents have already paid for the trip, who sit on the board, so.
We got two. So I just wanted to make sure, in trying to be as transparent as possible with the policy and with this. So what I'm hearing from the board is that there isn't a need for a resolution on this, but just a need to make sure the board is informed of how this relates to a possible policy.
Well, I mean, if this creates uncertainty, I was certainly fine with voting on this resolution and supporting it, because the previous item's discussion was principally all around whether or not we need to have a policy. But certainly, in this case, I don't think you were even aware of it, because it was sort of organized by CASA, which is, the governance of which is a little loose.
A pseudo agency.
Right. And all this resolution basically says we support the field trip to Europe, as I read it, and I would certainly have no problem saying that, so that the trip planners and everyone else involved with the trip knew with certainty that we certainly didn't oppose this, but that we support the trip.
Well, do we know if this trip has been before the Berkeley board?
Yeah, it's been approved.
And it's already been approved?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does Berkeley's board approve all of their trips?
All their overseas trip, well, actually, all their overseas and overnight trip, yes. I can't say how they, if it's all consent or what the procedure is, but, so, and I cannot say for the other districts in CASA if they have approved or not. Actually, I don't know if anyone else besides Berkeley and Ferndale kids are going at the moment.
No, I'm pretty sure there's more than,
Yeah, well,
There's-
there's IA kids who
Yeah.
attend as well.
Okay.
But there are definitely, last year there was Clausen, definitely Clausen. And I think it was just
Okay.
80 schools last year.
So, I'm fine move forward with, recommendation to approve a resolution in support. Just as a resolution, not as a official approval.
Well, I'd move that we approve the resolution of support of the trip, as stated in the superintendent's recommendation.
Moved by Mr. O'Donnell, seconded by Ms. Mueller. Any discussion or comment on it?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna vote no on this, not because I don't support the trip, but because, even though I've done these kinds of trips, I don't pretend to be the kind of person who can decide whether this is the kind of trip that we should take high school students on or not. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just not, I think, something that the board should be doing. So, I'm gonna vote no, not to oppose the trip, but to suggest that this isn't something we should be involved in, just by means of prior explanation.
Okay. Anyone else? And as I think the moving towards the policy that we talked about in the last agenda item is really to make sure that our students are safe and protected and having a learning experience. We're going to be continuing to work on that one, but I don't want any student or family to feel that we're getting in the way of their STEM trip that they've been planning for 2 years. So without, if there's any further discussion or comments, questions, then we can move forward with our roll call.
Deacon Cross,
No, for reasons.
Hart,
Yes.
Hermuller,
yes.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
Butters,
Yes.
and President Latashe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. With 6 yes votes, the motion passes, and the request to approve the resolution regarding the CASA student field trip to Europe is passed and approved. Now moving on to item 5.3, the request to approve the Director of Operations position.
And if I have to stop in the middle to grab my charger, I just apologize. I did not charge my computer before coming down here. So, as you know, we've been doing many different things with operations since I came onto the district. In the information I provided to the board, it gives a little history of my knowledge of where operations has been in the past. We have been dividing up managerial responsibilities between Mr. Shelton and myself as a cost-cutting measure a couple years ago. With the inclusion of the almost $900,000 of sinking fund that the residents have graciously given us, I find it's very important to make sure that we are spending that wisely, as well as our overall operational budget is $2 million. and we spend at least $200,000 to $250,000 on third-party cost. And those are things that, with someone focused on that area, we can cut those costs down, as well as we know there's plenty of energy savings that we can get. So in looking at all those different areas, we also know that we are going to need to hire through projects a construction manager. You have to have someone certified in order to do that. So as we do construction projects with the sinking fund, it is better to have an on-site person, someone that is employed by the district to be able to do that, as opposed to a third-party company that you're paying to do the work. So looking at bringing back a director of operations position, and that would mean we don't have to spend the money in construction management, and we're looking at some reductions in the GCA contract, and then looking at further reductions the next year within operations budgets, different cost-saving areas by bringing someone on with that skill set. Some of the things that we heard tonight, the gym lights, the exterior lights, my first thought was, okay, how do I bid out a timer system for those lights so that they go off at 10:30 every night, regardless of if we have a substitute custodian or not? What's the proper way to shield the exterior lights so they're not going into someone's living room? I don't have that skill set nor that knowledge. And those are things we have to put out to bid. We have to make sure the right companies are doing it. And then it's really easy, for lack of a better term in construction, to get snowed on many of these things if you don't have someone appropriate. So I'm thinking tomorrow morning, what do I do about these lights? And I don't necessarily have the answer off the top of my head, but obviously they're a consistent problem that we have to deal with. So we're looking at hiring a director of operations position. We're looking for someone that has a degree, a bachelor's degree at very least in facilities, construction management, business administration, at least 5 years of experience. Looking for someone with K-12 experience, as well as experience within the construction field. So this is someone that would oversee all areas of operation. And our goal would be eventually where this would be budget cutting, where we would be taking down our operations budget and then using that $900,000 a year to save operational cost every year, which was one of the goals of the sinking fund. So I'm recommending approving that position.
I will entertain a motion to approve item 5.3, the request to approve the Director of Operations position. Moved by Mr. Degenkraus, seconded by Mr. O'Donnell. Any questions, comments, concerns, discussion?
Well, we did have a lot of discussion about this in two separate sustainability committee meetings, and I think our citizen members and the FEA representative who was at our last meeting had all of their questions answered, and certainly I think the committee members are in favor of it.
Anything else?
Do we have a plan for how this is going to be communicated out to the wider school community?
So I know, actually, Mr. Shelton, if you want to talk about how you've communicated with the different units regarding this.
Sure. I've spoken individually with all of our union leadership folks and discussed the same speaking points that Mr. Pruitt just shared with the board. So we have discussed it with our employee groups.
And I've discussed it with the admin team, with all the building administrators, giving them what this is, why we're looking at doing it. Overall, it was very positive from the admin team to be able to have someone to go to deal with these issues. And then once we hire someone, we'll communicate that out to the whole community. But also the entire school district sees all the postings too.
Right, so I'm just thinking about the questions that will arise once the position is posted, once the new person is hired.
Well,
what will the answers be to questions from the wider community about this position?
And part of the talk with sustainability was, in lieu of where we were right now, getting permission from sustainability to do a post, but not do any interviews or any vetting until after the board meeting. So we already have a posting out there so that we could get a candidate pool. And if the board, doesn't approve it, then we just leave the candidate pool. If the board does approve it, then we move into vetting the candidate pool. So the posting has already been out there with all the units, and it's been communicated to everyone. So I will say I've got a number of people that keep asking me, when are we going to get someone in the spot? Because I need someone to deal with X, Y, and Z. So that's been more of the response as we talk to people about it and look at it.
Okay, so I'm going to get down to what I really want to know.
Okay. Yep.
We have this mantra sort of right now is we're trying to put all our money in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we address that by when we're hiring an operations director, when we've gotten along for a while without one? And by gotten along, I know that that's not really the right way to describe it, but I'm not questioning the need for an operations director. I hope you understand that. I just want to know, when we get the phone calls, how is this benefiting the kids in the classroom? And I know that you have those answers, so we just need to, I'm just wondering how we're going to get those answers out.
And if I can just piggyback, because it's actually almost the identical question that I was thinking of. There has been a strong push by some in the state that we should be outsourcing everything, and really everything. So, we may face some pushback from some, that we were outsourcing this before, we should continue to outsource this. I assume the answers are in that related set, so I just wanted to kind of add that in, and so you could talk about that.
So we've actually, as I said before, been piecemealing this, because what GCA does is not operating our money. This is who operates all the operational money, who gets the bids, who does all those different pieces, who makes sure that GCA is doing what they're supposed to do and meeting their requirements, and if they need overtime, it's being approved with the proper budget. It's the equivalent of having an entire elementary building with no principal. That's the size of the budget.
Right.
And now we've added another $1 million yearly to it. And we see what happened with the bond when it didn't have proper oversight. We lost a lot of money. And it wasn't until we got proper oversight that we were able to start retaining that money. So in one sense, it's putting back in place something that should have always been there. And we're at the point when how does it help the classroom? I've got 20 classrooms that when we turn the boilers on aren't the right temperature. And I get emails from teachers, from parents, why is my kid's classroom 82? Why is my kid's classroom 42? So either I have a director of operations that can go and diagnose and figure it out, or I have to call service heating and pay them thousands of dollars to come out and deal with it. So it's trying to make sure that we have the buildings, the facilities, we have everything in the right place, done properly for the students in the classroom. So that's the piece of how it helps the classroom. And I think that from the staff in the district, they can tell you about the things that have worked well in facilities and what things long-term have been major issues that we still struggle with. So it's one of those things that we can continue to limp along, but it's going to cost us more money long-term as things break. And we're seeing it. The Roosevelt boilers at $800,000 were a perfect example of lack of oversight and proper maintenance of the boilers, because we had no one that understood boilers. So those should have lasted another 5 to 10 years, and we wouldn't have to spend that $800,000. Same with the Casa boilers. Before I got here, that was $200,000. So it's taking care of the millions of dollars of facility we have, as well as what's going to be about $3 million in our operational budget to maintain our buildings on yearly budget.
So I would also add to that list of how it is adding to, not taking away from classroom, what happens in the classroom is we hired you for your expertise in curriculum and in education related topics. And so I'm looking forward to you being able to take this chunk of time that you spend on some of these operational issues, having somebody else do that, and then you will have more time to put toward what, we really liked when we first hired you, which was, your experience with curriculum, your education background.
I don't think you're saying that we don't still like it.
Although I've heard that bathroom you built is really great.
Yes, well, and I know that you do pride yourself on your, your
I do
maintenance knowledge.
I do have a basic knowledge, but my 3 degrees are in education.
Right, this is what I'm trying to get at. Thank
So
you.
this will allow you to spend your time focusing on instruction and curriculum as well as the principals in all the buildings who now have to deal with 2 hot rooms, 2 colder rooms, and boilers that won't start and windows that won't open. So this makes us financially responsible with what the community trusted us with in August, and also with our ongoing budget, and it allows the educational professionals to focus on the kids.
Yep.
So, that's good. Thank you, Amy. That was a good question.
If I could add something quick.
You can't really.
It's only in public comment.
That was only in public. I'm sorry, but I'm sure it would have been wonderful. I'd love to hear it afterwards, and I'll share.
Can I just do this?
Okay.
Nonverbals are welcome. Well,
Can we have that reflected in the minutes, please? That was a thumbs up from Mr. Foreman.
Okay. So any other questions from up here? Sorry. Okay. Then I think we're ready to move forward with our roll call.
Park? Yes. Miller?
Yes.
O'Donnell?
Yes.
Toomey?
Yes.
Butters?
Yes.
Deacon-Cross?
Yes.
Budget Lapage?
Yes. Thank you. With 7 yes votes, the motion passes, and the request to approve the Director of Operational position is approved. And now we get to move into informational items with the student growth presentation. Is it a PowerPoint on the wall? Okay.
It's just measured by the yardstick on the wall, marking. Is there another thing?
No. Should I put a helmet? Should we get everybody to put on a helmet and
How do you
goggles?
compare yourself to the golfers? By height.
Yeah?
Mr. Mays, could you dim the lights a little bit?
I would say yes, but I'm not sure. How's that?
Well, there is a way to dim them.
Oh, that's fine.
He'll dim the lights if you lay down the gas track.
There you go.
I just got the sense.
You got the drift, yeah.
Is it on Google or?
It's on Google, if you open up the Google there.
Yeah. Want me to start from the beginning?
Yeah, please.
I guess that was
I didn't realize that Jackie's
I guess that was kind of loud.
Wait, can the board vote on that? I thought now that we've seen how many slides there are.
I know, it's funny.
So this part of the evening, we're going to talk about why we're all here, and that's our students and their success in our schools. And I think before we do, why don't we all take a deep breath? So we have, it's been a little stressful and things like that, and we really want to share a good story, and that's the success of our students. So tonight's presentation will be sharing some baseline data about our Ferndale schools. So we have a few learning targets that we want to make sure everyone's aware of. We're going to share Ferndale Public Schools' definition of student data and the use of that data. We will do that through a short little video. We're going to share some baseline data points that we have collected since September and talk to you about what baseline data is and what it is not, and how that relates to our school improvement goals and our efforts pre-K-12. Then we're going to spend some time talking about the cultural shifts that you're going to start noticing within our schools, in our classrooms, to support all students. And then Tom is going to talk to you about how we're using this purposeful data to support our teacher evaluation process. So the first thing we're going to show you is a short video of how instruction and HR and Mr. Pruitt, how we in our schools, how we think of student data and the importance of that.
What is student data? You may not think of empowerment when you think of data, but when used effectively, data can give you the full picture needed to support the incredibly important education goals of parents, students, educators, and policymakers. That said, there's a lot that must happen before data can be meaningful and useful to everyone. Student data are collected from many sources and in many formats, although the type of data and who can access them is different at each point. But what do we mean by student data? First, there's academic information, student growth, courses, grades, enrollment, completion, and graduation. Then demographics, students' age, race, gender, economic status, and special education needs. There's testing, results of teacher-designed tests and quizzes, and annual and benchmark assessments, as well as student actions, attendance, behavior, extracurricular activities, and program participation. Plus, data generated by teachers, observation and engagement of students in the classroom. And finally, data generated by students, homework and learning data from apps and online tools. To get that full, clear picture, important requirements must be met for information to be truly useful and to empower people. Data must be there when you need it, provide a whole picture of student learning, and be relevant to your needs. Data has to be safeguarded, trustworthy, and kept private. Educators and policymakers need to have the knowledge and skills to use data effectively. Data should be used to communicate with families and communities about how students and schools are doing. And data must also be used to help leaders and educators support and improve learning. The right data, in the right format, used the right way, empowers students like Joey, supportive parents, dedicated educators like Ms. Bullen, and visionary policymakers with the information they need to make decisions and take actions that lead to student achievement. It boils down to this. Student success depends on empowered policymakers to allocate resources and craft important laws. Student success depends on empowered teachers to design effective instruction and individualized lessons. Student success depends on empowered parents who support their kids' academic growth at home. And student success depends on students themselves, empowered with information to manage their own progress. Every student's success depends on all of this coming together, and that's the real power of data. When students, parents, educators, and policymakers have the right information to guide their decisions, students achieve their best, which empowers everyone. And that is student data.
So tonight we're going to show you some baseline data. And that data that we're going to show you tonight is data that we can be able to look at each student individually and from this date forward see what kind of growth he or she makes during this school year. So our presentation, although it will
Already used data, and it's just part of good teaching. And I think the idea that data is
More data.
Sorry about that. So the information that we're sharing with you is lumped together with groups of students and schools and grade levels. But what we want you to walk away with is our growth plan for that it's based on individual students from where they're at and where they're moving forward. With that in mind, every school improvement plan and our district improvement plan in a whole has 4 frameworks that we look at. Our high quality instruction. In Ferndale schools, we define that as where our students and staff are focused on learning. School culture, where our students and staff are focused on a collaborative culture. Intervention and enrichment, where we're focused on moving forward from where they're at currently. And assessment and results, where our students and staff are focused on the results, that everyone understands where they're at now and where they need to move or grow to move forward. So the first thing Ms. Grillo is going to talk about is our DRA scores. These scores are the scores that we've had most for a longer period of time in Ferndale. We have used this assessment for many, many years, so it's very reliable at the elementary level. And Beth will talk to you about that.
Hi, everyone. So as Dina said, the elementary teachers have been using the DRA for many, many, many years. And it really what it is it's a reading and literacy test that's given every year, 2 to 3 times a year. Kindergarten starts in the winter, so you won't see a kindergarten fall baseline score because they will start theirs in the winter. The DRA, and I'm not going to read this, you guys can read it on your own, I just want to give you a little bit of background about it. The DRA is given one-on-one between the teacher and the student. In the younger years, it's mostly oral. In the upper years, there's a little bit more of a written component. But either way, it's the teacher and the student sit together and go through these tasks together. Do you want to go ahead and, oh, sorry. So what I want to show you is our fall baseline scores. So this is for every student, grades 1 through 5 in the district, every teacher, every student. The yellow are the students who are entering in the fall below grade level, and the blue represent our students who are entering at or above grade level. So one thing that we have in Ferndale is we have a chart, a graph that tells us where students should enter each grade level, where they should be in the middle of the year, and where they should end the year. And I'm happy to say that we actually got official documentation from Pearson last week, and our levels are exactly in line with the official documentation. So this is really good news for us because while we know that we've been doing the right thing, they have verified for us again that with all their new changes, we're exactly in line. So you can take a look at those numbers. You'll notice that in grades 1 through 4, a majority of our students are entering at or above grade level, which is really great news because they are ahead of the curve. We're going to talk about 5th, and I actually met with the reading specialist today, and we're going to meet again next week and talk about what are some possibilities for why that's happening. So just to tell you a couple quick things about how we are going to use the DRA results. Number one, the reading specialists in both schools rely heavily on this data for their small group reading interventions. So they groups of kids together. For elementary schools, it's about 4 students per group within 2 grade levels of each other, and that's really important for all interventions that kids are within the same range of scores. And then they do targeted interventions with those kids based on their specific set of skill needs. And then to branch out from that, now that we're going to talk about intervention and enrichment later on, but the classroom teachers are also implementing interventions in their classrooms based on these scores as well. So we rely very heavily on these scores we have, and then what you'll see in the winter in January is that the scores will continue to go up and up and up.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the assessments that we give in the district that aren't called DRA. I'm going to start with the K2. This is a brand new test that the state has started giving this year. It's called K2, but in the fall it's only 1st and 2nd grade that take their ELA and math tests. Because this is the first year and the test window doesn't close until this Friday, we actually don't have data to share with you. And before I forget, I want to make what I think is a very important point that everybody in this room needs to keep in mind about the data that you see. This is all a snapshot in time data. This is not trend data. Okay, so when you look at 4th grade was above grade level, 5th grade came in under grade level, that's not saying anything about what happened in 4th grade. It's saying right now in September, early October 2016, here is where our kids are at. Okay? And that's true for every piece of data that you will see tonight. Okay? So the ELA part of the early literacy broken down into reading, writing, language, mathematics, for 1st grade and operations, algebraic thinking, number and operations, measurement and data geometry. These are all Common Core aligned. These are the major clusters of the grades for Common Core. Had a fun video from the state that I was going to show you, but I think we'll bypass that so we can get you home by midnight. So that moves us into grades 3, 4, and 5 at upper elementary. Students at upper elementary take the NWEA. This is our third year of administering NWEA. There are 3 NWEA MAP assessments, measure of academic progress. There's a language usage, a reading, and a math. Scores from the NWEA assessment are given in what's called a RIT level, Roush Instructional Unit. The key component or key feature of the RIT scale is it's a continuum, like a yardstick. So it doesn't matter what grade you're in, it's just measuring where you're at in the learning continuum. Speaking of learning continuum, there's a component of NWEA that's called the learning continuum, and it helps teachers identify the skills that the students are proficient at or nearing proficiency or need a lot of help on. And I believe Ms. Rochelle will talk a little bit more about the learning continuum here in a little bit. NWEA, there's a snapshot of the learning continuum. So you'll get your score, and then you can identify based on a 10-point gap. In the middle, you see develop. There's where students should be kind of 75% chance of handling that on their own, so almost able to be independent. The reinforced would be independent work introduced would be an item that students need a lot of support from the teachers on, so that would not be independent stuff. So our NWEA window recently closed, so we can show you the baseline data. Now, if you're familiar with NWEA at all, you might know that a lot of times scores are compared to norms. And the norm is simply the 50th percentile, or the average score, which doesn't really get at grade level proficiency. In order to be proficient at your grade level, NWEA says you need to be somewhere between the 65th and 70th percentile. So the numbers that we use were actually taken off of a chart that shows the 69th percentile, so right in that window. So in our reading, you can see relatively consistent across the grade levels. And again, this is our baseline data. It's giving us information that we can use with intervention and enrichment so we can really hit the kids where the kids are starting. So there's our reading data, language usage, and mathematics. So that's our upper elementary assessment piece, the NWEA. In middle school and high school, we use a program called Adaptive Intervention Solution. One of the components of AIS is called the AccuSUS Adaptive Test. It is similar to NWEA in that it will adjust its difficulty based on whether students are answering correctly or incorrectly. Like NWEA, the kind of target for AccuSUS would be that kids are getting about half the questions right and half the questions wrong. So it's always adjusting to kind of identify exactly where the students are at. And these scores are given in a grade level, so it's a lot easier, there's no conversions that people have to worry about. After the students complete their adaptive test, what's called a prescription is generated for each student who's below grade level. That prescription will give students tutorials, video, independent practice to get them up to grade level. Teachers do have the ability to quickly log in and see where their students are at on these scores. So we'll start with reading at the middle school. We only give the 2 assessments at AccuSUS. Adaptive reading in the middle school and adaptive math.
What is it? Is it blue?
Sorry, blue is coming in at grade level,
Oh, okay.
and yellow right now would be not grade level.
And Tom, I just want to
Yeah.
clarify
Sure.
something, because what we're seeing is just baseline. We're not seeing how this compares to every other school district or every other school. As we know from other standardized testing that we've seen in the past, our scores might be far better than other schools, like schools. That's not what we're looking at in comparisons. We're looking at just a starting block for our building.
Our middle school math. So one of the things that I am doing with this data is I'm meeting with all of our math instructional lead teachers to share this data and to reinforce how much our intervention and enrichment time is necessary and that we're taking full advantage of that time. There's FHS. In addition to our AccuSS assessments, secondary level, all students in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade take a test from the College Board, part of the SAT suite of assessments. PSAT 8-9, which was a new test last year, is administered to our 9th graders. PSAT 10 to our 10th graders, and then the SAT to our 11th graders. This is all part of the state testing that's done in April. Can you click on that for me, please? We're going to watch 2 real short videos that just quick summary or overview of the SAT.
Across America, our approach to education is changing. To keep up with global trends, new standards are being set for students on a state and national level. This will change the way our students learn and think. With new standards, the old ways of testing are changing. Students will be taking an updated version of the SAT that reflects the new curriculum starting in 2016. This will affect nearly 2 million students nationwide. The test will feature a new structure, scoring, and more. You can learn more about the new SAT at satchange.com.
Yeah, one more.
Let's take a look at the structure of the new SAT. The math section contains 3 main areas of concentration, a substantial portion of which prohibits the use of calculators. It requires a deeper understanding of mathematical concepts, including trigonometry. The evidence-based reading section tests your ability to understand complex passages and identify words in context. The writing section tests your grammar and argument-building abilities. The essay is now optional, but is still required by many schools. You can learn more about the new SAT at satchange.com.
Thank you. Michigan does require the essay for the SAT. This chart just shows a quick breakdown of those 3 tests. PSAT 9 takes kids about 3 hours and 5 minutes, and that includes reading directions, collecting books at the end, etc. PSAT 10 is right at 3 hours, and the SAT, to take the non-essay part is 3 hours, and then it's 15 minutes for the essay. Components of all of those tests: evidence-based reading and writing, which is broken down into reading and then writing and language, and then a math part. And as you heard, there are calculator options, or calculator questions and non-calculator questions on all of those items. The score range, it's what they call a longitudinal scale, which basically means that a score of 500 on the PSAT would mean a score of 500 on the PSAT 10 or on the SAT if you took it on the same day or about at the same time. So it's similar to that Roush scale, where it's all on a continuum. And then some of the key components: strong focus on reasoning, knowledge, skills, understanding. And what the redesign of the SAT tried to focus on is skills that are necessary for college readiness, but also career readiness. Greater emphasis on meaning and words, so students aren't memorizing words, but having to read passages, and in the passage identify, in this passage the word concept means what. And then rights-only scoring, and that basically means that you're not penalized for getting a question wrong or for guessing. So that's the SAT suite. There's just a graphic for that longitudinal scoring system for the 3 tests. This fall, as part of the adaptive intervention solution, there are SAT practice test packs. So at University High School and Ferndale High School, we had our 9th and 10th grade ELA students complete one of the reading practice tests. These are the percentage of questions that students answered correctly. So there's no correlation between an SAT score and these percentages correct. SAT is a norm reference test, so it's really impossible to take a question or a test that's not administered by College Board and try and guess what the SAT score would be. But again, baseline data for all of us to use this year to help our kids grow. This data is from last spring's state-administered PSATs and SATs. These are the Ferndale High School scores. Yellow bars are Ferndale High School students. The blue bars are the state of Michigan averages. Similar data for University High School. Now we'll talk briefly about M-STEP. A couple years ago, the state did away with meat. Brought out a new test called the M-STEP, which is aligned to Common Core. These are the spring 2016 district-wide results. Last year was the first year that 11th graders did not take an M-STEP or MEAT or math or ELA. The state realized that SAT was testing Common Core standards, so giving the students an M-STEP and math or ELA would just be taking instructional time to get the same data.
What does that represent?
Those yellow bars are the percent of proficient students by grade level. And with that, I will hand it back over.
So with the 3rd grade reading bill coming out, we wanted to show that the relationship between 3rd grade proficiency and poverty in Oakland County. And as you saw, dependent on the test or assessment that you looked at, we were either doing very well or you were very concerned. And there's lots of variables along with that. But what we wanted to show you was if you look at on the bottom, that's the percent of economically disadvantaged by school district. And if you look at our school district compared to other school districts that are similar to us, we are above the bar with what we're doing. So when you look at 3rd grade proficiency in Oakland County, what percent of students do you think would have to be retained next year? With the current legislation, what do you think the percentage might be? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? It's over 50%. And that's for anywhere from Troy, Rochester to Oak Park. And it goes higher based on the school district, but that gives you a very open mind about some of the scores that you saw.
Oh, sorry. One other assessment that we give My Access. It's Michigan's alternate assessment system. There are 3 different levels of My Access for students who qualify. It's the functional independence, which is for students who have or function as if they have mild but significant cognitive impairment and whose instruction is most closely aligned with high range. For students who would be in the medium range, there's the SI or supported independence. And then for the most severe cognitive impairment, we have the participation. The functional independence is an online assessment, except for the writing part, which is paper, pencil, and then it gets sent to the state to be scored. The other 2 are teacher-facing assessments, where students are scored by 2 scorers, and the scorers then kind of collaborate and enter the scores into the system. I'm not going to show you data on the My Access. because we really try and get most of our students to take the M step, we have such a small number of students who actually take My Access that showing you any data would be, pushing the boundaries of privacy for students. So that's why you're not seeing any My Access data tonight.
So along with any kind of data collection, we want to look at things other than just academic data. So this is our percentage of attendance since the beginning of the year. So you can see that we're doing very well attendance-wise, but Mr. Pruitt's office is monitoring attendance every month, as well as behavioral concerns, and we are looking at that and meeting with school administrators, student achievement team, and the social workers to look at that data and make any significant changes or tweaks that we need to. So earlier tonight, I put in front of you a form that says cultural shifts in our Ferndale framework. I gave that to each board member. And these are shifts in certain areas, and I won't read it, but I ask that you read it so you can understand. When we look at the data that we just shared you, our baseline data, we're going to come back and share data 2 more times this year with the school board. And what we want you to notice are the changes in the growth that you see and all of the data points that we share with you. On the form, it says a shift in fundamental purpose. Before, our focus was really on teaching, not just in Ferndale, everywhere. But now the shift is looking at student work and looking at the learning and what changes that we have to make as the educators to support that. A shift in use of assessments. We want the assessments that we shared with you today and the assessments that our teachers do, anecdotally, observation, exit tickets, to inform their instruction. So we're going to use this data, we're going to share it, teachers already have it, and we want to use it to better the students. A shift in when students don't learn. What will we do for individual students? But if we have a group of students, what will we do? A shift in the work of the teachers, a shift in clarifying what students must learn and to build collaborative teams looking at shared knowledge and understanding. We already have a very good format with that, with our professional learning communities and how our teacher teams work together with that. And a shift in focus from issues outside of the school to an internal focus on what our staff can do to improve the school during the school day and so on. So we wanted to share that information with you because that's a big part in the work that we're doing. One of those things, if we think about cultural shifts, on the right, we have a protocol called Student Achievement Team. That Student Achievement Team, dependent on the school, previously met certain times. Some schools met every Tuesday, some schools met once a month, and it ranged. So we have standardized that protocol. And a Student Achievement Team is how do you support one student individually? And that's to support the teacher with another set of eyes that could support that student. To support the individual student need, we write an action plan for 4 to 6 weeks of implementation. Then we come back to the Student Achievement Team, see if those strategies were working, and if not, tweak them. It's to bring the family on board to support that student achievement, to provide materials for the family, and if the action plans that we put in place do not provide sufficient support, what do we do to redo it, or do we move forward with some type of evaluation? Now, thinking about fixing a system one by one is very difficult, but it's very, very needed. So when we think about cultural shifts, we want to think about looking at the bigger picture. So intervention and enrichment time is starting from kindergarten all the way through 11th grade. At the middle school, it's just called enrichment, which I think is a beautiful thing. What this does is we take that data, let's say at the 3rd grade level, we looked at that DRA data. All 3rd grade teachers are going to look at that data and make decisions on where students need to be for a portion of the day based on their instructional level. So now we're not working one-on-one, but we're looking at students' needs and putting them into groups to support that learning. So moving students forward from where they are at. So if we have students who are in 3rd grade, but their DRA level shows that they're at the 6th, 7th grade, they're going to have some type of book study with their classroom. Or not with their classroom, with that teacher, and they're going to move forward with that. But if we have other students who are really struggling with comprehension or fluency, they would be in a small group for a designated amount of time. We are also doing that at our middle school and our high school in ELA and math. That's a huge shift in our focus. But when we look at data and we know we have some concerns, we have to think big picture and what we can do shifts during the day. So we're going to support grade level and subject-specific small groups based on our data, and restructure our services during that day, and to provide some engaging and enrichment opportunities for that. What are we going to do? This has been part of our plan for the past few years, but we want to share that we're going to continue to focus on instructional practices within the classrooms. We have a structure called professional learning communities where grade level teams and subject-based teams meet every early release and focus on student work and learning. We have our instructional lead teachers who are powerful and lead their teams with facilitating what they need to work on. We provide numerous professional development opportunities based on need and what we're looking at aligned to our school improvement plans. We want to continue to focus on instructional shifts. That's what I just talked about earlier, our intervention and enrichment time. At the K-5 level, we have started a pilot with our social and emotional learning plan where every day teachers have time and focus on specific morning meeting topics. And that's very, very important, especially when we brought 3 schools together into 2. We have to focus on that culture. If you go into a new job, your first 6 to 8 weeks, you're not going to feel your best. You have to get to know the new people. You need to figure out who you're going to build relationships with, who you can trust, who do you need to work more with. Just like as adults, that's what our students are doing. I can say our team has been in classrooms every day this year. We have scheduled walkthroughs. I would say we were probably in 15 classes at least today. And the changes that we have seen from the first week to now are very powerful. When we continue to see that and we're collecting that data, we're going to see even more changes and we're going to see things start to flow a little more. And that's really important. When we think about that, we need to think about child development too. So if you have any questions and you hear families talking about things, please let us talk to them too, because I think that's really important. At the secondary level, we have Y-Try and restorative practices. We've seen some big changes in that. Just the development, the bonding and relationships with those people in those positions with students that are in need is very powerful. And remember, it's not always our students who are acting out that are in need. So very powerful. On Friday afternoon, we have Y-Try coming in, and they will be working with all of our secondary, middle school, Ferndale High School, University High School, and TCEC instructional staff. This is their second time being here, and they'll be here 2 more times this year, which is very, very powerful. And then our continue to support students and families through our student achievement team, student data folders. If you want powerful data and powerful ways to motivate students, let them tell you where they're at and where they need to move forward. Those data folders are very, very good for that. And you'll hear that when you go to your student-led conferences shortly. And that's very, very powerful. And then we always are continuing to partner with different family and support organizations for all of our kids. Tom's going to talk to you about how this aligns with our teacher evaluation process. I'm going to sit down so I don't feel like Donald Trump next to Hillary. You know, like that SNL thing.
No, I'm just slides. Thank you. So just a couple preliminary comments. This began as a conversation in the spring as we were really talking a lot about school improvement and the valuable work that we are doing and the work before us, and trying to make sure that the teacher evaluation process that we were following both mirrored and supported the work that our teachers are doing to support student achievement and student success in the classroom. So, in some cases, in some situations, teacher evaluation is kind of a bad word, and you see the winces when you start talking about it. We very deliberately wanted to take the idea of student growth to support teacher evaluations and make sure that instead of putting hoops in front of teachers to jump through, that we were collecting data that was meaningful and that accurately showed student growth. And so we worked collaboratively together through most of the summer. I have an evaluation committee that involves administrators and teachers, and we worked on this as well. So 25% this year of a teacher's evaluation comes out of student growth. And so we, that's a significant amount, obviously, and our goal is, and that's going to be growing to 40% starting in 2018-19. So we need to make sure that we have a system that supports student achievement and that supports our school improvement teams, but more importantly, that it's relevant data and that it's focused on student growth. So that is the gist of our support. Beginning this year, each building will collect and analyze data to assess student growth and to generate a building-wide score. So in addition to the building-wide score, teachers with collaboration in their PLC time will submit a minimum of 3 classroom-based assessments. So this year, for the first year, each building will have a building-wide student growth score based on some of those assessments that we saw a little bit earlier in the presentation from Dina, Tom, and Beth, as well as others that will be submitted. In addition, each teacher will submit their own individual student growth from data that's coming out of their classroom. So with all those percentages around, I know that gets a little confusing, but again, each teacher has 25% of their evaluation score that's based on student growth. That student growth score is half based on their building score and half based on their individual score. So at the end of this month, on October 26th, each PLC is going to be given time to talk as a group about what assessment data they would like to use and submit for their evaluations. And in addition to that, each school improvement team is going to be meeting with approximately the same timeline. So by the beginning of November, we're going to know what's the data that our buildings are using to assess student growth, and what's the data that our individual teachers within their PLCs are using to measure student growth. So we set time to set in PLCs on October 26th, and we're going to be looking for that data from teachers that first week in November. This slide shows what we're calling our data dashboard. So on the right is a list of assessments where, if they're offered and if they're available, they must be a part of the data that the school improvement team looks at and examines throughout the year. So you see a lot of the assessments that our curriculum instruction team talked about earlier tonight are listed in that box. You notice towards the bottom, suspension referral rates, attendance rates, passing rate. Those are items that our school improvement teams need to be looking at. Those are not items that we can or should ignore. Those are not items that necessarily will be scored or part of a teacher evaluation, but rather as part of that process of that school improvement team looking at their building-wide data that needs to be a data point that's being looked at and referred to. On the left side of the screen are items that are listed for optional inclusion. Those can be within a building-wide score or an individual score. And that's not meant to be an exhaustive list, considered more a list of ideas. A lot of our secondary teachers will use locally developed assessments, either assessments that have been written in PLCs or classroom-based assessments that assess growth. But the most important thing, we'll get to this on the next slide, the most important thing is we want each school improvement team, each individual teacher, to set achievement expectations. If you take an for example, the PSAT 10, okay? What is the achievement expectation? Where should a 10th grader be when they take that test? And what percentage of our students are at or above that level, okay? And then the additional question is, what do we call a year's worth of growth for that? And the combination of those two gives the teacher their score. And this is some verbiage from our actual protocol that we're collecting. And again, you see the expected score, where should students be, and what percentage of students are not there but still showed growth. So I'm going to pick on Mr. Telesford in the audience for a second. Let's say that for his student growth, Mr. Telesford decided that he was going to use his semester one end of semester exam as one of his growth measures. Okay, and he's going to say my expectation is that 70%, my students are going to get 70% or higher in this exam. That's my achievement expectation. Okay, in the end, if he has 60% that meet or exceed that achievement expectation, and another 30% that didn't quite get there but still showed a significant amount of growth, a year's worth of growth, then that is a highly effective rating. That's a combination of students who achieved and students who didn't quite achieve but still showed growth. So that's an example of how we're measuring it. We're also asking teachers to provide narrative and describe a little bit how they've applied interventions. For those students who aren't achieving, what interventions have you tried, what results have you had, and more importantly, how do you describe a year's worth of growth for every student on this assessment. This is our achievement rubric, again showing the thresholds for students. To meet a highly effective rating, we want to see a teacher have 90% of their students either achieving at that grade level or showing growth. And that's a combination of those two. And you can see where the numbers fall from there. We are also measuring subgroups in our achievement gap because we know that's something else that we need to have a close eye on. So within each piece of data that our teachers are collecting and using for school improvement and for teacher evaluation, we want to look at achievement gap and kind of tease that data out to see are we closing that achievement gap, and are our lower achieving populations showing more growth. And then finally, through the narratives and through other data analysis, we want to see the application and the result of intervention activities specifically, but also the enrichment activities are provided. And Dina, I think this was your last slide that you wanted to present.
So that information we shared with you, think about if you go to the doctors and they take your vitals and then they give you a plan. And it's dependent on if you focus on that plan, and if you follow through with fidelity and implementation, then that plan's going to be successful. And that's what we want to take away from that data we showed you tonight. We didn't show you comparables or what achievement levels they should be at. And that was on purpose because that's just our baseline data. That's like taking our vitals. What we want you to know is that we're going to continue to focus on the right drivers. We're going to use our data to make instructional decisions, not only based on individual kids, but at subjects and grade levels. And then we're going to have meaningful conversations about that data to make that evaluation process a personal or powerful tool for our teachers as well. Anybody have any questions? I know we gave you a ton of information. In December and in May and June, it'll be shorter. If you have good behavior. No.
So what kinds of things are in place to keep our teachers to make sure that the scores are true? And that, because now that that so much is being dependent on how the students perform, how do we know that the grades that we see on MyStar are truly a reflection of the student's performance and not a teacher making sure that they get a good evaluation? What makes sure that that doesn't happen?
So I would respond by saying that one of the reasons that we have evaluation structured the way that we do is that student growth and teacher evaluations is a whole package. It's not just one individual assessment. So if, for example, you have a teacher whose second grade classroom showed off the charts DRA scores, which is teacher scored, but when we look at NWEA data, the data's way down here, then obviously that's a conversation that is had at that point with the teacher and administrator. By and large, I have to say our teachers are genuinely focused on student achievement, and we've not had that issue in the past, but it's definitely something that we'll be mindful of.
Right, I mean, it's higher now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the focus on the student achievement is a bigger percentage.
It's actually the same it's been the last couple of years, but
then
it's going to go up. Right. You're correct. Yes. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Something we definitely need to be
Something
mindful
that
of.
would maybe be in the back of some people's minds, you know,
Mhm.
in terms of, you know, is this really, is my child getting all A's because, you know,
Mhm.
a teacher is concerned about how they're gonna be evaluated? You know, I mean, I guess
Right.
that's the risk.
Yep.
And I would just say that I have a genuine respect and trustworthiness of our teachers.
I do too.
I'm in those classrooms every day, and what they're doing is the right thing. And I have the utmost respect for them. There's so many ways to look at that data, but the most important thing is if I'm a teacher and I'm going to share that data with a teacher or with another student or my fellow colleague or administrator, that I know where that student's at or where my class is at, and I can have that dialogue. And that's, as an administrator, that's easy to see, but I have the utmost respect for our teachers, and I know what they're doing and how they take to heart that evaluation process. And, you know, if that was in all different components of businesses, it would be very frightening for others to see that. But I have complete respect and admiration for the teachers that we see.
It would be almost impossible to give all your, per se, give all your kids A's and get highly effective if your data didn't reflect the growth. That would be glaringly obvious. And although I have never seen that in this district, to reiterate Dean Thomas said, I have been in a district where we had a teacher that it was glaringly obvious within about 9 weeks after the first grades were done and the baseline data. But I will say our teachers do a great job in it, and but that would be something very easy to see.
Can I raise a sort of related question? My concern isn't that the teachers are somehow teaching to the test or something like that, but that the tests are actually failing the teachers. And some of these tests, especially the state mandated ones, are of mixed, shall we say, quality. And so I guess the same procedure would then go if you know the teacher from various estimates is doing a good job, but the tests show poor results for reasons that really are related to the test and not the teacher. Presumably that would be systemic, but there are other ways of finding. I mean, how do you deal with a test that just is an unreliable or invalid indicator of what you're looking for?
Well, that goes back to that data dashboard and that conversation with that individual teacher. And I think there's, you know, I can say a few years ago, a teacher who is on maternity leave now, I would say hands down probably one of the top 3 teachers I've ever seen, ever, instructionally, just incredible. And she had really, you know, difficult year with data, but she had the ability to explain every kid. And her kids had the ability to explain to me why they were doing what they were doing. And I think that's very powerful. That's why you want to use a data dashboard. That's why you don't want to use a snapshot in time of what we just shared with you. I mean, if you go to 3 different doctor visits, they're probably going to tell you 3 different things. So that's how we have to equate some of that information you looked at tonight. And I think that's really important, especially when we're out in the community talking to others, that this is a snapshot in time. How many of you had to take your driver's license test more than once?
I told you that in confidence.
Kevin, the other thing I'd add to Dina's response is that, remember, yes, we're spending a lot of time tonight talking about student growth, but 70% of the evaluation is based on what that trained administrator sees when they walk in the classroom. And that's the way it should be.
And I know all this came down from the state mandates and the legislature saying this is how evaluations will be done and these are the tests that your students have to take. And it's a fine balance between over-testing kids and having them spend too much time in front of a computer. And also providing the teachers and the parents the tools that they need to show where their kids are truly, and also that growth. So I appreciate how much time you've been spending together to really make the evaluation a tool of really having that student growth. Because I think that's the most important thing here. And to combine that, I thank you for all the work that you've done. And that was a tremendous amount of information you gave us today. So I thank you for that, and I look forward to December, May, and June. Is that what you said? Okay. Anyone else?
January.
January and June.
We'll give you Christmas off.
Thank you.
Or December off.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Anyone else? Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you have a PowerPoint too? Okay. And now we're moving into item 6.2.
Tom or Beth, can you put the lights back up?
Superintendent's report.
Pretty bright now.
So I see if the computer is working. Decided not to. I had put together a short list of items that are going on around the district, and some things that the principals had wanted to share with the board. But I realize the time that we have and some other items that we have to get to. So if it's okay with the board, I will just share that out to you, just to give you some highlights of the different buildings, since my computer is deciding it needs to charge up.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
So we're moving along.
Mhm.
There were no pulled consent agenda items. Our next regular board meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 21st at 2016. And then with the switch in our agenda, we're now moving into Eagle Points of Pride. Does anyone wish to start? Okay.
Jackie and Karen and I got to attend the Southeast Oakland Coalition's first annual Peace and Unity Prayer Breakfast Saturday morning. And it was a really great event. And one of the things that was included in that event were some awards given to, there were 3 of them. There was one that was given to a community member, one that was given to a law enforcement employee, and one that was given to a school employee. These were for, given to individuals who have gone above and beyond in terms of, helping their community. And I was especially proud of the winners, especially two of the 3, all 3 of them, of course, but 2 of them were connected directly with our school district, and one was Officer Janessa Danielson, and the other was Ferndale Middle School's assistant principal, Bob Francis. The third was Royal Oak Township community member Sandra Boyd, who also is very active with helping the youth of the community, and it was just fantastic to see those individuals recognized for their contributions to our community and specifically to the kids of our school district. So it was just a great event, and that was the highlight of it for me.
Anyone else?
That was my point of pride as well. I just wanted to kind of echo what Amy said, and just to also see so many people in the room who are not necessarily parents in the district, but who attended this event that is in our district and in our building. And even Herb Ivory, former principal, is very related and runs the Southeast Oakland Coalition. Minu Jones, who is the executive director. This was their first event, and had I not known it was their first event, they did a fantastic job of putting it together and just incorporating all the Oak Park Mayor Ferndale, as well as local pastors in Royal Oak Township, and just bringing everyone together. Congressman Sandra Levin was there. So it was just really nice to see a lot of people in the community that we don't necessarily touch because they don't have students in the district, and to just have them to be involved and to show up. And I know everyone was very encouraged and excited, and there were students there. I mean, our basketball coach, Coach Tommy Staten, bought a table for the basketball team, and so they were there and they were able to participate and just to be involved in that. I just look forward to attending next year and encourage everyone who, when the event comes up, to just buy a ticket and come out and support the Southeast Oakland Coalition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you want to go, or?
I do have one.
Okay.
And I'm really glad you didn't steal mine, because my point of pride was actually going to be that Jackie and I had a chance to take part in the beginning of our new diversity committee.
with Dr. J. Marks and just a really nice group of parents, administrators, principals, teachers, community members, to start sitting down and having some really frank conversations about diversity and how hard it is to come together as a diverse family and work through a lot of the problems that we're currently having because we're trying to turn into a blended family. And then I had the opportunity to go talk to the PTA at upper and lower campus and talk to some of those parents about how important right now it is to make sure that we're looking with loving eyes and being calm, because for a lot of these kids, especially at the upper end, they're feeling like their school is disrupted because there's new kids there, or they're feeling lost because their school no longer exists. And so it's hard for all the kids. And there's probably a feeling of loss for all of them that we as adults need to remember, and we need to model the kind of behavior that we would like to see in them.
This is not pride so much as gratitude, but I on a similar note, I'm just grateful that the school board and the African American Parent Network here in Ferndale schools and others, including Mr. Tellisford, participated in the second of a series of really conversations and discussion and learning about issues of diversity and cultural proficiency, cultural competence, and how we can learn together to grow as individuals in a district. And it really has, it's been quite helpful to me in understanding, where I'm at and where I need to grow, and also where where my the colleagues and people in the community that I'm working with to get there are. So I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to do that, and I wish, I really wish there were more opportunities in not only our community but elsewhere for that kind of dialogue and discussion and human growth.
Mine is a little unusual, but I am really proud of the two people who are running for the open Ferndale School Board seats. And we had a chance to talk to them as a group over the weekend at a meet and greet. And I have to say, both Mike Davison and Jackie Hart, I was really blown away by the eloquence and the vision that both of you presented. And I'm just really excited. I wish I, the early starting school board member, had been able to understand and define that well what these boards are about, what this board in particular is about, what this district needs, and how to go about doing it. So I was really proud and really excited to hear both of your visions for this, and I'm really excited to be able to fill in those two little oval circles on November 8th, along with a lot of other. So please vote, everyone.
Can I do a couple?
Yeah.
As I kind of went through my list of all the buildings, something that I've loved in going into the upper elementary campus and seeing some of the new things that are happening. I got to spend a little time with the new Lego Robotics League that's there, and actually working on getting some computers over there today, and just seeing that group, seeing the Math Pentathlon group. The Fall Festival this weekend was phenomenal. In looking at our students and our teachers and our community. And this, some of the things that make our school special outside of the classroom. And just seeing a diverse group of kids and diverse group of parents in all these environments, working hard for kids and watching kids. Lego is something that we never had at the elementary before, and because of the restructuring, we can have it now. To watch kids that are going to move up to the first robotics, that are going to follow that path. kids that are honing in their math skills after school. So there's a lot of great things I get the opportunity to see as I walk around the district, and those are just some in the upper elementary that I love seeing.
And I will go last. Next time I'm going first, because you two took mine, but that's okay. So I'm just gonna expand on it.
There's another one. I have a second one that I want to do.
Okay, I'll let you go ahead. 'Cause it's already stolen, so can't get stolen again.
No, I was gonna say our football team is going to the playoffs. I was just like, oh my gosh, I forgot to say that. That's super exciting. I'm really, really excited about that.
That is.
It's been a lot of fun watching them win, and it makes me really happy that we combined the schools to have this football team, and they're like working together, and they're kicking some butt out there on the field. It's fun to watch. Okay, go ahead.
All right. I was just going to expand on my pride and my sense of, pride of living in this community and living and working in this district and being a part of this district. When we first started doing this strategic plan, it was always focused on the kids, but it was also focused on the greater good of equity and diversity and inclusion. And in this time of our national landscape, it's very difficult. We have all these different worlds and these colliding and very forceful opinions on both sides, and it's a very trying time to see that. And it's also a very difficult and challenging time within our district. We made a lot of changes. A lot of people are happy. A lot of people are concerned. But I think when we look at the greater good and we get through this together, we're going to be even that much stronger. And I can so appreciate living in a community that prides itself on our diversity and our inclusion and moving towards that and working together and communicating and having those tough conversations, opening yourself up to different people, working with your kids, working with yourself, and trying to move forward. So between the board members and the community members that we're working with CFF, with Ferndale Inclusion Network, and then with the teachers and administrators and board members that we're working on kind of an ad hoc diversity conversations for the last year or so. Then with the inception of our new diversity committee, which is going to take a lot of time and a lot of commitment and a lot of soul searching and working together. And I think it really sets the stage for our district to succeed. And I couldn't be more proud of all that. That's mine. And I think that concludes it. Next, we have the request to move into closed session to discuss negotiations. Entertain a motion to move into closed session with Mr. Pruitt and Mr. Shelton?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Moved by Ms. Hart, seconded by Mr. Miller. Okay, we go into closed session.
Is this at the request of the administrator?
It is at the request of the superintendent administration.
Thank you. I don't have a clock on here. Time is it?
It's, time is 9:12.
9:12, okay.
We have to take a
You have to take a vote, a roll
Oh,
call.
I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
Mueller?
Yes.
O'Donnell?
Yes.
Butters? Yes. Kraus?
Yes.
Hart? Yes. President Raj?
Yes, thank you. And with 6 yes votes, the request to move into closed session at the request of the administration is approved.
And we'll just stay here in this room.